Today's conversation tackles something nearly every person or family is wrestling with: how to live well with technology, without guilt, fear, or unrealistic rules. My guest today is Eli Singer, a Toronto-based founder, writer, and speaker who helps families build healthier, more balanced relationships with their devices. Eli is the author of Offline Now, a practical guide to healthy digital balance, and the founder of OfflineNow.com, a wellness platform built around realistic, non-judgmental, micro steps that actually work in everyday life. Before launching Offline Now, Eli built one of Canada's earliest social media agencies and worked closely with brands and institutions. That experience gave him a front row seat to how technology is actually designed to shape attention and behavior. His insight has been featured in Harvard Business Review. Today we're talking about why confidence matters more than willpower, how families can reduce screen time friction without going off the grid, and what healthy digital balance really looks like in the real world. Eli, welcome to the show. Can you start by telling the audience a little bit about you and what you do?
Sure. Eli Singer, based in Toronto, 49 years old almost. My entire career was in social media advertising. I built an agency focused on community building and blogging, and then made the switch into coaching with a neurodivergence focus. And now am CEO of Offline Now. We're looking to build the world's largest community to help people have better digital balance, better, healthier relationships with the screens in their lives.
Yeah, that is so important. I think it's something we're seeing more and more, especially as we've been on social media for so many years. People are looking for a way to set those boundaries and maybe looking for a little bit more guidance. I'm excited to dive into that more. You've spent so many years at the intersection of both technology, behavior, and then also family life. Was there a personal moment or a realization that first made you think we need a healthier way to live with our devices?
Great question. Well, early in my career, so we're talking, 2007, 2008, it was pretty clear as someone who'd grown up on the web that the social networks that were explosive were collecting lots of data. And so I was hyper aware that when you were putting time into these social networks, you were revealing a lot of information about yourself. Now, at that time, it didn't feel unhealthy to spend tons of time on these networks or on the social web because there was still a real community vibe. When it started to feel unhealthy for me was when I was really at the early stages of starting my agency. Foursquare was big, and I'd be sitting in my office, grinding it out, trying to make things happen, and hearing all of these peers of mine checking in Coca-Cola's offices or Staples offices or these banks' offices and thinking they've all got clients and I don't. And it started making me feel really unhealthy, especially since the agency I was building, I felt like I was sort of beating to my own drum, being a little counterintuitive. So I wasn't going to ride the normal path. And it was then when I just decided I was going to stop, like no more of this Twitter, no more of anything, because it was making me feel not so confident in what I was doing. Also, I always found writing was just a torturous personal exercise, which was why my original blog was a link blog as opposed to a diary. So, these were some of the factors. These were some of the contributing factors. And obviously, as you look around you on the transit and have kids or spending time with your partner, you're hyper aware when people are ripping out their phones. And
Right.
Over time, you're like, maybe there's a different way to do things.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think when it first came out, it did have a stronger sense of community. And there was always the opportunity to disconnect from it when you left your computer and when you went out there. But then when smartphones happened, then you brought social media along with you, and you honestly became reachable at all times. You can get fatigued from it. You're constantly available for people to either to absorb content or for people to reach out to you. And you don't really give yourself that time to be present and to actually enjoy where you are. Right now, a big focus is trying to find that balance while we do have our phones with us and while we are on the computer. And I think for a lot of people who work in marketing, trying to find that balance of, okay, how much am I doing this normally for my job? But then at what point can I step back from the screens and live in the real world? Change takes time, and to be able to develop those boundaries does take time too. And you often say that lasting change comes from confidence and not the willpower. Can you unpack what that means in the context of either family screen time struggles, personal screen time struggles, and why the willpower approach really tends to fail?
Sure. So there's a lot there to unpack. Feel free to jump in at any moment. We've got, I guess, habit change is hard, right?
Yeah.
Quitting smoking, going to the gym, learning a new skill, what have you. If you start in the wrong place, you're very likely not going to be so successful. So if you want to start going to the gym, if step one is I'm just going to go for 3 hours a day, every day of the week and max out what I can lift or the class or what have you, you're going to hurt yourself. It's not going to be something that's lasting and you're probably not going to go back. So it's the same as when people are feeling like I'm done with my phone, my device, my gaming, my online shopping, gambling, what have you. I'm going to delete all my apps. I'm never going to go back. That typically doesn't last very very long. And when they reload those apps or turn off that screen time, people feel a sense of shame and guilt and judgment. And they feel like, I'm not going to be able to ever do this. I'm never going to be able to. And so this erodes at confidence and makes people feel less and less like they can make this work, which is why things like going cold turkey or digital detoxing, these binary rule-based, only 2 hours of Instagram a day, in some ways set you up for failure. So that's the first kind of foundational starting point. So people that want to make the change or change their behaviors, whatever that is, right? Because it means something different for different people, they have motivation. But what they don't necessarily have is the roadmap or how to be successful. And so they don't have self-confidence in their own ability to be successful. So in the first early stages, the goal is not to change your relationship with your phone and all of a sudden have that ideal, whatever your goal is. The goal is to build your confidence slowly so that you're proving to yourself on a daily basis, I can do this and this is working and I'm experiencing the benefits of it. But equally, on the days where you fail or rather you don't meet your expectations, because it's not about success or failure. The days that you don't do as well as you would have liked to have done, you don't beat yourself up. You take those as learning opportunities and say, okay, what can I do differently next time? Or why did I slip? Or was it a time of day? Or was it an experience? So just being really slow. And it's not about willpower in the sense that I'm going to prove to myself that I'm not going to pick up my phone. It's about slowly building that self-confidence muscle that I can do this and finding out what works, right? Your first initial idea might be, I don't want to use my phone at all during my commute. But you might find that actually I need to use my device on the commute for music or getting ready for a day. It removes my stress level. And it might be after dinner 20 minutes where you've cleaned up and you need a rest. Maybe that's the time that you want to have a break where you do something else. So you have to kind of figure out what works in your lifestyle.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a quote, I think it might have been Ed Milet. It was one of the podcasts I was listening to, and it was that self-confidence is keeping the promises that you make to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
With anything that you want to try or start to do, you have to work that muscle until you become more confident in it and you're able to have those guidelines for yourself, but not so strict that you feel overwhelmed by the process. Everybody really does spend a lot of time behind screens. For some people, even just admitting that they spend so much time on social media is a really hard first step. People say, oh no, I really don't spend that much time on it. But then if you ask to see how much time is on their tracker on their iPhone, it's how many hours a week. But people don't want to accept that. So in order to make a change, do you feel like people have to first realize that there is something that needs to be changed and then take that next step? And will that help with the confidence factor?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, I like to take a coaching mindset approach. So people, first, like I said, we strip away the shame, we strip away the judgment. We're just talking with somebody. You have a life, you use your time to do certain things. What are some of the changes you want to make? Those changes could be, I want to spend less time on a device or in front of a screen. It could be, I want to sleep better. I want my mornings to be better. It could be, I want to pick up a new skill, right? Because sometimes you're running away from something. Sometimes you're running towards something. So let's understand what's going on in your life. It could be, I want to have more connectedness with my partner, right? And then you can take a look at that challenge and say, okay, is there an opportunity to change some of my relationships with the screens in my life to make more space for something I want to do, or to take away a behavior that I just want to start to manage? So that's one way in. Another way in is to just start taking a look at the day, right? And what are the different day parts? Because you mentioned being overwhelmed. And part of what we've done in the book is created this assessment, a motivation and confidence assessment. And we've had hundreds of people that have completed it, and we're looking at the data. And what we're finding is people that there are 4 different types: ready, overwhelmed, stuck, and unconcerned. So of the two with the motivation to make a change, ready, those are people that have high confidence and high motivation. And then overwhelmed, they have high motivation but low confidence. So what we're finding is that the highest times for ready are all day Sunday, on weekdays, a little bit at 11 a.m., and then 5 to 8 p.m. after work. And the highest times for overwhelmed are the afternoon, so let's say 2 to 4, late at night, and all day Friday. So another way in is just straight up structurally take a look at your day and say, okay, Sunday, when I'm feeling the most ready, is when I might want to sit down myself or with my partner and think, what are some of the experiments I want to run during the week? As you think about when those are going to happen, you might want, if you really have like a tight relationship with your phone and you think it's going to be hard, maybe you want to try those experiments between like 5 to 8 p.m., maybe a little bit in the morning, because that's when you're going to be strongest. And, avoid afternoon, or in the afternoon, in the evening, and Friday, know you're going to be overwhelmed and say that's okay. Give yourself Saturday as a recovery day. So you were saying you were using earlier when we spoke that you tried to stay off the social web on the weekends.
Yes.
Have you thought about like a process where you kind of think about your strategy or your own personal approach on the weekend? And then like, what are the times of day that work for you during the week?
Yeah. So one of the reasons why I selected the weekends was actually I listened to this podcast, Busy Blooming. It's about social media growth and building a personal brand. And the host of the podcast also takes a break on weekends, and she works heavily in social media, which is something that I do as well. And it got me thinking, weekends are times where I can check out from being a part of the online community that I am and creating the content that I do. And it also seems to be, this goes along with the point you just brought up about having that time. I try to have my weekends planned where I have things to look forward to. I'm present with family and friends, or just present with myself. I'm going to go for a walk at this park nearby. I know I'm going to have other things on my agenda that is important for my mental health to focus on during this time and to not be distracted by my phone. So honestly, it's easier for me not to be on my phone on the weekends because there's other things preoccupying my time, which I knew going into it would make things a little bit easier. I didn't decide to do my social media free time maybe after work from 7 to 9 when I'm like engaging on Instagram or I'm replying back to emails. It was strategic in that way where I was like, this might be a little bit easier of a transition for me to get off my phone because I'm going to plan other things for myself to do to occupy my time. I'll be out somewhere too. I also tend to not scroll or really be on my phone when I am somewhere else aside from at my house. So I think that helped to give me that break too, which is really why I decided I think the weekends are going to be a time where I don't go on social media. And so far it's been good because I do have things planned. I think when you have downtime, it's easy for a lot of us to take out our devices and try to fill it right away. Following along with that, if someone's looking to say like after, work, I don't want to sit on my couch and scroll on my phone. I want to maybe be a little bit more creative. There's things that I wanted to do or further myself in terms of like learning, my career, whatever it may be. Or even if families are listening to this, like what are some realistic changes that families can make this week? And maybe it's like a high friction moment. So it's like a morning, maybe when it's, maybe their kids are doing their homework, or maybe someone's just trying to wind down after a work day. What are some little things that they can do during that time to not feel so tempted to pick up their phone?
Right. Okay. So I think it starts with interest, right? Because if you're not going to use your phone, especially during a time where you're really used to, like every day after dinner for the last year, I go to the couch and I like start using my phone. Well, the behavior of going to the couch and using your phone are two things that are going to be really hard to change. So let's say you're going to be on the couch anyways, because that's what's going to happen after dinner. What are some things that one might be interested in? One of the examples I've been using a lot because it's with a friend of mine, they used to draw, but now all I do is use my phone, but I want to be drawing again. It's like,
right.
But it's really hard. Okay, sure, no problem. Why don't you go to the store, buy yourself some colored pencils or whatever you like to use and some paper and just leave it on like the coffee table in front of the couch.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're sitting there on your phone, put the phone down for 1 minute and grab one pencil and draw on one page just for a minute, like no expectation that this is going to be serious. You just want to pick up the pen, put it on the paper and put it down and then go back to your phone. And just, know that it's there. And from time to time when you're sitting on that couch, do that. And you might find that after 2 weeks, that 1 minute when you're using the phone might have become 5 or 7. And those like 1 pages that you've drawn, you might have like half a book already done, right? In terms of pictures, you're spending more time, you're getting more engaged. Maybe you're even going to the couch and not even like picking up your phone so fast because you want to keep on doing your drawing. So, it's just what are those skills as an individual, as a couple, as a family that you kind of want to pick up that people could slowly get excited about and work into your schedule. The other thing, this is one that I use in my life a lot. Like I love music and I'm like got that ADHD brain that like loves high resolution music that just drives me crazy, but it comes out of my phone. So if I come downstairs in the morning and I want to listen to tunes on my headphone, I got to like pick up my phone and I can get lost. So I bought myself like a dedicated high res music player.
Oh,
And
great.
so it's there, it's got my music. It can't do anything else but play music. And so I pick that up and I can spend a good 20, 30 minutes listening to music, having coffee, doing some stretching, dance party, whatever goes on, just to get my day off on the right foot. So these things don't happen overnight. And when people are making change, it's not going to be easy, especially at first, and when you're trying to figure out what works. So don't look at things as like a pass fail. I did it, I didn't do it, I'm going to be hard on myself. Just think about like what works. What did you enjoy? How might I push that another 10%? Or is there another thing that I might want to try differently next time?
Yeah, that's a great tip. We actually had an episode all about returning back to you last year on my podcast. And it was really insightful to hear how a lot of the hobbies that we enjoyed years ago in our childhood that we kind of put down and then picked up a screen instead are things that we truly find so much happiness in doing. One example in my life is that I always loved photography. And for a while, with a lot of my content creation, it was just easier to capture the content when I was out on my cell phone. And it just wasn't as creative or honestly as high quality as I would like them to be. Something I've been starting to incorporate more and more is breaking out my DSLR camera, taking out my lenses, and actually taking that time, which I know I guess it is technically a screen, but taking out that time to take and capture those photos with my actual physical camera later on, then uploading them to my computer and then going through and editing. But I've found so much more happiness in doing that versus just capturing content on my phone. And that's really helped me when I'm not on social media. Filling the time with a hobby that I really enjoyed, the time does go by fast, and I don't miss scrolling on social media. I'm actually present. I'm
No
enjoying.
one really does.
No,
No
I
one
don't think
does. You think you need it because your brain really likes the dopamine and the hit, but there's so many other experiences out there. Like you were saying about photography. We went to Thailand last year. My daughter's
so.
17. We wouldn't let the kids bring their phones. We figured they're going to get older. You know, there will be a time where they're going to want to. And so I pulled out the old like 35 millimeter like electromechanical camera from the basement. We brought loads of film. I gave them all to my daughter, taught her how to use it. 70% of the photos were terrible because she doesn't know how to work a camera properly.
Right.
But that doesn't matter because she got to carry it around. She got to line up the images and wind them. And it was just, she felt really cool carrying it. And she was cool carrying it.
Yes.
Right. And sure, like we ruined a couple rolls of film, opening them up and exposing them, but that was part of the learning. And the photos that were great in the end, they were fantastic. And so, you got to be playful and creative with things.
Yeah, absolutely. That's just returning back to hobbies that you enjoy that don't involve being behind a screen is honestly, it's so refreshing. And afterwards, you feel better versus when you're sitting on your phone, you tend to feel like worse after sitting on social media or whatever app you decide to scroll through. This is actually brings up my next question here. So before Offline Now, your website, you worked deeply in social media and brand design. From your insider perspective, what do people or families misunderstand about how technology is intentionally designed to shape our attention and our habits?
Great question. I think people know a lot more now than they did 5 years ago.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, certainly people didn't know that like companies were hiring the same kinds of designers that designed video gambling terminals
Right.
for app design. And right. So I think the notion of dark patterns, on websites where buttons are the wrong color, they're hidden. I think people are more aware of that now. I think, even years ago, online surveys, people thought they were just having fun and realized there was just like, I think people are a little more aware now that this is like advanced profiling, especially with AI. I think even parents are more aware now about, the harvesting that's going on sites like Roblox.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's my community that's more aware of that, But I
Yeah.
feel like with everything in the news, I think there is a lot of overconfidence in people's ability to differentiate between AI or produced imagery and content and real imagery, especially among young people and teens that think they've got the nose for it because they were raised on it. And, you've seen so much Instagram over the last 2 years, you can recognize the slop, but it's getting way better.
Yes, yes.
I think the piece that people are truly not aware of is how many bots there are out there and how much of the conversation, either in the news feeds or your algorithm or content, truly is coming, might present itself as coming from a US or North American source. And maybe it has a partisan or political or what have you point of view. And so much of this is, by bot farms, by bot networks, can come from overseas. I think just people don't recognize that.
Yeah.
And I think also, people don't recognize the mental harm that comes from just seeing that same ad about your body or about skincare that, every day for 3 years, and wondering why like teen girls are so into Sephora, or like, middle-aged men are all of a sudden know so much about Tai Chi, if you know what I'm saying, which you might not know about middle-aged men and Tai Chi because you don't see those ads.
Yeah, they're very targeted specifically.
Everything's very specifically targeted.
I actually just saw a stat about the bots recently. Almost 40% of social media engagement is not real people. And I'm sure it's higher than that. That's just what was.
I heard 70.
70%? Okay.
I've heard 70. But it's hard, it's hard to know. I mean, you see pictures even of the online poker gaming farms where there will be like 6 computers playing a hand with a human. So if you're addicted or involved with online gambling and you're playing those games, you're very likely getting fleeced. Like, you're not playing against real people, even if you think you are.
Right. Yeah. The rise of AI and the AI content too. I don't think people are realizing. And honestly, we really don't know what the future is going to look like with that. But I don't think people realize it from a social media perspective of scrolling. And, some people laugh like, oh, that's obviously AI. More and more, it's getting more realistic. And it is really hard for people to tell the difference. I don't think there's really enough parameters around it. Within these apps, there's so much AI content that's being shared. You can opt to tag your content if you used AI. And then I know there are platforms coming out that the whole platform is going to be AI focused. But when you have these platforms that were at one point, I think initially, a sense of community, and it was supposed to be so that you could see photos of your friends and your family and you could connect with people online. Social media has become so different, and each piece of content now falls within the algorithm in some place, and your feed is not your friends and your family anymore. Your feed is
it hasn't been for a long time.
Yeah. And I think for families and for parents and it just, as time has changed, I think that also plays into why people are not feeling as connected on social media anymore, and why people are looking to do things, step away from it, or to set up some sort of guidelines around it, because it just feels draining. It feels like you're just absorbing content that is purposely designed for you based on all the data that they've gathered on you so far.
Well, I also think about, I guess, the branding aspect and the personal branding aspect of this podcast. Things don't work the same that they used to be. And it's getting harder a lot faster. Like, I remember the days when this was all new, right? Because I was involved in that, and I've seen the evolution literally almost over 20 years, right? Because I remember when Blogger was Blogger before it was bought by Google. Like, that was when I got engaged with this stuff. And it was flat, right? Like, you could connect to anybody and they could connect to you, and that's the things would, pop out. But I mean, it's an attention economy for a reason. You're either going to get traction to your site through paid media, or you're going to pay with your attention. And if you want to pay with your attention and your time with likes and shares and comments, the stuff that's going to get that attention now is going to be more and more extreme. And extreme, not just in the nature of the content, but the volume of interactions you're going to have to put in order to cut out. So there almost is like a tipping point where you're an individual cannot break through anymore. Like, one will see the Substacks and the YouTubes and the viral this and that and TikToks, but the formula about what will drive success, like, you can't get on these platforms and just like hit singles and doubles and do well. It's you got to hit triples and home runs. And that's like very hard to do.
Yeah.
Very, very hard to do.
Yeah, I think creating in terms of a personal brand, longevity in a personal brand is something that has changed significantly. Now, the content piece itself could go viral, but that doesn't mean that people feel connected to the actual creator behind the content, or that they're going to follow along, or that they're going to even remember your content in 10 minutes when they continue to scroll in the app.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people, there are people that are into personal branding because the products that they're selling are around their personal brand, let's say. And then there are individuals who have, like in the community that I'm working with, like I'm a therapist or I'm a coach or I'm a social worker and I'm looking to build my client base.
Right.
But I'm not looking to build a personal brand or a following. I'm looking to, generate 5 to 10 leads a month if I can, right? And I'll convert those into conversation. So I might post here and post there, but I'm not like, I didn't go into marketing for a reason, right? I don't want to be a marketer. I don't want to like put myself out there in this fashion. And so it's a real challenge because that kind of middle ground of just people that want to be humans, they don't want to be creators, they want to be able to share what they're up to, but they don't want to be video editors and they don't want to be like copy pasting UTM codes or like reverse engineering algorithms.
Yeah.
And I just want to make sure that my blog is SEO, but search traffic is being disrupted by 60% by large language models.
Yeah.
And like, wait, I got to put schema on my website. Otherwise, no one's going to know what I'm doing. People don't I just want to be a therapist and help people with their anxiety. And now I have to be a personal branding online creator because costs per click might be like $14 if I don't spend 15 days learning how to use the Google media buying system. Because if I get one wrong negative keyword, I'm getting all the wrong people. It's too technical.
Yes.
And you're up against these platforms. Maybe they're backed by private equity money or venture cap money, where they're just scooping it all up.
Yeah.
Right. In terms of the paid media and consolidating people into gig platforms. So it's a hard time to be an individual on the internet. And, maybe in terms of like the marketing mix of time and experience, there's value of in-person connectivity.
Absolutely. One thing I think is really going to pop up more and more throughout 2026 is that sense of community and the in-person events and in-person conversations, even if it is on a smaller scale. I think for businesses specifically, getting involved in the community, having people actually come in to your store, to your location, and to connect with other people with similar interests, I think is something that's people are missing because of how social media is now with constantly being fed ads, and there's so much that it's just so overwhelming. I think people miss just like being present with other people, with people wanting to just be a business owner, have a little bit more of a connection with their audience without TMI sharing everything about their personal life. I feel like it's seesaw right now.
Yeah.
People feel like they have to share so much, but then they're not getting the engagement back by opening themselves up like a book online. And that because of the way the algorithm is now and the way that the content is being fed out now. So people are sharing so much in hopes that it will help them connect to other people. But, their reach is really being stifled by all of the other content that's going out there. It's a great resource for people that own a business and want to give a little bit more personality to it. But it is really hard to get that viral piece of content nonstop to grow your audience. Like, I know that's not the goal for a lot of people too.
Yeah, I was speaking with, not far from my house, there's like a neat little area of the city that's just in the process of gentrifying. So there are some really interesting independent shops showing up, food shops, clothing shops, catering, you name it. And I was talking with one of the owners and she's just like, we're trying. People don't know we exist. We're trying and social media this. And I said, why don't you think about this a little bit differently? Because you want people to come to you. Like you're a hyper local business.
Right.
Why don't you find 10 other business owners in the area around the block and then go to the local art school like OCAD, which is the Ontario College Art and Design, and find some student illustrator or several of them or post to their job board and have someone create like a little neighborhood map or like a poster about all the new independent stores in the neighborhood and have them illustrate it or what have you, and then make 20 or 30 copies of it and, all over poster it, or, do a drop as a pamphlet and everyone can co-invest in that idea. Mm-hmm. And then you get 10 or 12 local business owners that, Like they're not necessarily competitive, but even if they are, it's a high tide lifts all boats.
Right.
So it's sort of like a community strategy, but it's not an online community strategy,
Yeah.
right? It's
That's a
sort
great.
of like, so just thinking creatively about how you can, blend all the pieces together.
That's a great point. I think in terms of marketing, everybody is very focused on using social media as the way to get the message out there and kind of forgetting that there's so many other ways that you can get the
Yeah.
message out there, even through the digital space. Email marketing, SMS marketing, in-person events, I think is huge. I think that's something that throughout 2026 is going to become more and more popular. People want to feel a part of something and they want to go and be able to experience it in person, to step away from they're probably on a screen a lot of the time and to not be in front of it. I think, yeah, that's a great idea. Local businesses are really looking to do that too, and to host, meetups or something that maybe ties in with the other local businesses in the area. Like you said, it's giving everyone the opportunity to get their name out there in a way that typically would be very saturated if they were trying to do it on social media.
Yeah. Another, and like I have a therapist friend, she's a book publisher, she's got a podcast, she's got a lot of materials. And, she was just hiring people to do like social media for her for years and never really knew what it was doing or what it was going to do. And so we kind of looked at the technical back end of her funnel and found all of this opportunity at her fingertips that she'd never even touched, right? So they got people making content over here because they think it's cool, but it's not tied in any way down to performance. So one thing one can do is, if you're a local store owner or, in person or online, just what are you using in your stack?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what is processing your credit card transactions? And are there features or capabilities in that software platform that either you're not using that you could use to message people or tie in coupons or collect more information, or, like what's built into what you already have that's tied to your conversion that you can, like, there's like a SMS thing I can bolt on. So what are the thing, instead of working from top of the funnel down on the personal branding side, work bottom of the funnel up for what's working and see how, so there's just, people can look differently at it. And while it might be not as comfortable because it's more techy, all these platforms that people are using, have customer service or support signs or concierges. You can go and see like what apps plug in.
Yeah. That's a great tip. Something else that's happening a lot right now is, I would say, leaning into your current customer base as a goal would be for them to live the story of your brand. So something we talked about on the show recently was from storytelling to story living. So it's no longer marketers or people saying, this is how you should feel about our company. It's now letting the people that have interacted with your company before be the advocate out in the real world and tell their friends and get that word of mouth out there. Because I think we're also seeing a shift where what once was such a trust in influencers is, because there's so much content out there, it's really hard to kind of find who's sharing what and who to really trust. So if you have friends or local people that are very passionate about a business, you then feel more tied to go to that business, or you're more excited to go to it because you have that personal connection to it already. And even with, creating the content, whether you're sharing it online or not, being in person with people that are excited about your business for you, I think that goes such a long way. And, that's a great opportunity. One example that came up recently was a cake shop, and every year she noticed that she was getting orders reoccurring for a birthday. So that's a really easy thing. Like if the month before their birthday, you have an automation set up on email that says, your birthday is coming up, take 20% off a cake or something like that, that retention of those customers, plus they feel like that personalization aspect really ties them in as well. Now they feel connected to your company because they're like, wow, they remembered when my birthday was.
Oh, for sure.
So little things like that.
I love that stuff. And, it makes me think that you can take a lot of this data and use AI to help understand, like, what are all the automations that I should be,
Right.
take a look at the software stack that I'm using. These are the data points that I'm collecting. Look at all the features that my software can do. What should I start configuring to see if what works? And then just start running these tests.
Yeah, there's so much opportunity out there. And there's ways you can use AI, I think, to help with streamlining a lot of that.
For sure.
So yeah, that's a great opportunity there.
Yeah, I love what you're thinking about that. I thought that was a really lovely idea,
Well, thank
honestly.
you. So I want to take a quick pivot here and talk a little bit more about the digital wellness directory that you've come up
Sure.
with. You offer families the opportunity to connect with therapists, coaches, and specialists. For many families, they may say, okay, my kid spends too much time on a tablet, or we're spending too much time in front of the TV, or, we want to spend more in-person time together. But there may be a little bit of a misconception about asking for help with these digital challenges. Maybe they don't realize it's as much of a challenge as it is, or what would be some of those benefits or things they should consider and how this could really help them?
Great question. First off, I'm a parent. I got an 18 and 15-year-old. It's hard, right? It can really disrupt the relationship if you're the police officer. There's a lot of screaming, yelling. There like a lot of anger, a lot of throwing things. It can be really hard, and it can disrupt the relationship with the child. It's also really easy to blame the tech and the phone for people's behavior without suggesting maybe something else is going on here. It's also hard when there's a lot of, parents are told you shouldn't let your kid do more than 2 hours of this. You shouldn't, or their brains are going to melt. So parents are dealing with a lot. Plus, there's the number one thing is parental role modeling, right? So your kids are watching you. So it's hard for everybody. And I think it's really important to seek the insight of someone who's done this many times before and supported many people, because it's so contextually specific, right? Kids have different ages, different genders, bullying issues in school, anxiety, OCD, ADHD, all of these are factors. Parents might not be educated on how they're factors, And so even taking 15 or 20 minutes to have like a free conversation with one or several people just to get some tips, get some advice. What would it be like to have a parent coach, help us facilitate this conversation? How should we approach this? Can be very useful. AI isn't usually as good because they're not going to ask kind of the really specific questions about your child and ground it in your world. So, on our site. And the same goes, whether it's gambling or online shopping or online dating or like gaming, like any specific experience, which is why on our site, we have over 100 different areas of digital experience where you can find a therapist or a coach or a social worker or a dietitian or a kinesiologist, right, to help you consider, who might be a healthy person for you to have a conversation with. I guess the other thing I'd say is, we have really intimate relationships with these devices. Like we use them on our commute, people sleep with them, they use them on the toilets. Changing the relationships is really hard, and setting expectations of what's going to work is really hard. Having a human that can give you empathy and support you through the process can make all the difference.
That's a great takeaway. And if someone is listening as we wrap up this podcast episode and they feel overwhelmed or behind, like they've already kind of failed at managing technology, could be in their own personal life. Wow, I am constantly reaching for my phone and it's really hard for me to stop. Or maybe it's with their family at home and they're saying, I've already failed at managing devices. I gave them a phone too soon. What's one mind shift set, or maybe a first step that you'd want them to walk away with today that they can apply right away?
Sure. I would just you're here, you're in the present, and remove the guilt and remove the shame. You can do this, right? You just need the right starting point, but you might have done things that you've regretted in the past or think you should have approached things differently in the past. That's fine. That's okay. We're all like that with everything we do in our lives. That's cool. But you can make this change. You got to start in the right place and kind of forgive yourself and start moving forward. I would honestly, for a lot of people, the book that I wrote, Offline Now, it's very short. It's written for people with, attention issues because they use their screen a lot, but it's the tone that really has a motivational interviewing tone, which is the technical language to it, where it meets people where they're at and aims to give them confidence and the very, very, very start of a roadmap. So it's a quick, enjoyable read, and I think that's a good starting place too, because it gets people off their devices.
Yeah, disconnecting from the device. I like that it's a physical copy of a book too. I know some people like to read on a Kindle, but I prefer a physical copy of any book that I'm reading. But yeah, I will definitely link your book in the show notes, and I'll also add a link to your website as well. Thank you so much for joining me on the episode today. I'm really excited to share this with my audience. I think it was very insightful, so many great takeaways, and I really appreciate your time.
No, real pleasure to be here today. Thank you so much.